Everyone wants to make money from property. Most have no idea what the actual ladder looks like, and there's 7 clear levels. Each one changing how you earn, how you live, and ultimately the amount of wealth that you're able to create. Personally, I started at level 3, which is known as the rent-to-rent strategy. Starting on that level honestly changed my life, and I was able to generate tens of thousands of pounds each and every month. Now, I most certainly can't make this sort of claim without showing proof. Just jumped onto our property booking system right now. You can see right here how much was generated this week alone. You can see how much was generated just this month. And if we look at the last 3 months, this quarter, this is how much was generated. Just a little over £235,000 in the last 3 months. And the crazy thing is, when I started, I didn't have a crazy amount of money to actually start off with. Now in this video, I'm gonna expose all the different levels there are in relation to property from the very start, where most people start off, all the way to the top where these billionaire developers are at. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly where you are on the ladder and how you need to go about actually progressing to move up the level. Now, this isn't theory. This isn't something I picked up from a book. These are actual ways people are making money every single way. And trust me, some of these levels will shock you. Like, you will be really amazed. Without further ado, let's get started right from the bottom. Now, typically when someone's starting off with no money, they assume that they can't get involved in the property game. So typically people might choose to, become a estate agent, a letting agent, etc, etc. Problem is, that's still a job and you're still ultimately working for someone. However, there is a different version of that allows you to be your own boss, and that actually allows you to make a lot more money for yourself. And this strategy right here is our level 1, and this is known as deal sourcing. Very simply, what deal sourcing is someone that finds a property, but instead of them taking that property on for themselves, they're packaging it and selling it on to someone else for a fee. So they're basically the middleman. They find the opportunity, they find someone that wants to buy that opportunity, they bring the two together and they make their cut in the middle. Now, the amount that you can charge definitely varies on the actual deal itself. The average amount that I've seen, typically speaking, is anywhere between £3,000 to £5,000. Some people charge as high as £10,000, maybe even more, depending on how sweet the actual deal is. Now, when it comes to deal sourcing, there's 2 parts to this. There's the part where you're actually finding the property deal, and there's also the part where you're finding the investors to buy that deal as well. Now, when it comes to actually finding property opportunities, this can be relatively straightforward, to be fair. Let's say we're trying to find good property investment opportunities. So what we'd do, we'd have to go on platforms that actually have or properties listed for sale. So in the UK, for example, we'd go on Rightmove, Zoopla, and we start searching for properties to purchase in different locations. Of course, there's more specialized ways to do it as well, but this is a relatively straightforward way that a lot of people do, and they make quite a bit of money doing so, to be fair. Now, the other way, when it comes to actually getting investors for yourself, that part, believe it or not, is also relatively straightforward as well. I mean, myself and a lot of my students, they actually focus on Facebook. So what they'll do, they'll make a Facebook account, and the beautiful thing about Facebook is that they have different Facebook communities, around property, investing, all these different things. So they will join those communities, they'll engage in those communities and connect with different people, and that's how they will be able to essentially locate different people that are looking to invest in property, that may also be interested in purchasing, the right property opportunity from a deal sourcer. Now, like I said before, deal sourcing, if you approach it the correct way, of course, can be an excellent way for you to generate some cash flow relatively quickly, to be fair. Now, that right there is the basis for level 1, the very beginners, the very starters, people that are not starting off with the most amount of money. However, this allows us to progress to the level above, which the good thing is actually does come with you making recurring cash flow each and every month. And that brings us to level 2, which I call the management operator level right here. Now, just to give you better context of this level and how it works, when I first started, when I first started in the property game, I actually met this one landlord, and this landlord had so many different properties, and I approached him for one of his properties. Now, essentially what I was looking to do, I was looking to rent the property from the landlord and then sublet that property out on a room by room basis and make my profit on top. So I approached him for that reason right there. And I think this landlord could see that I wasn't really that guy. I didn't really know too much. I was in way over myself. But at the same time, he could sense that I was hungry. I really wanted it, and I really wanted to make this work. What we actually agreed to do was actually allow me to manage that property for him on his behalf. And the money that was received from that specific property, I would make a commission, or to put it simply, a cut from that. So let me break down step by step exactly how this model works. works. Now, this is the property right here that you're seeing on the screen. It was actually a 6-bedroom house. And what we were doing, instead of renting out the whole property, we were renting each of the individual rooms out to people. And we were letting each of the individual rooms out anywhere between £800 to £1,000 per month. All in total, that property was collecting on average around £5,000 per month. So then from that £5,000, me as the management operator, I would take 10% of that £5,000, which of course works out to £500 I was making per month from that specific property. So I started off with this one property. He had a total of 11 in that specific area. Eventually, I ended up taking on all 11 properties and actually managing all of them on his behalf as well, and making a decent little commission from that as well. So of course, when you actually locate these landlords, you can offer them a property management service. You know, you could offer to be an Airbnb co-host if they're running it as an Airbnb, or they're just thinking, you know what, this is a little bit long, I can't be asked for this. You can come to them, actually manage that Airbnb on their behalf on a co-hosting basis. Now, of course, this also does come with cons as well. Even though you're controlling the property, you don't necessarily have full control of the property because you're managing it on the landlord's behalf. So if he wants things done a certain way and he needs certain things done, then obviously you gotta be that guy or that girl to make it happen for them. And of course, you don't actually own the property, but I mean, that's pretty obvious. That's why you're starting on this level, of course. But don't worry about that, because the next level actually allows you to take things to another level when it comes to having a lot more control with yourself and making a lot more profits from properties. And right here is where we approach level 3, which is known as the rent to rent model. And this right here is the hustler's sweet spot. And to be fair, this is where I made the most amount of my money. And how this works is very straightforward. You're renting the property from a landlord, and then you're re-letting that same property out for a profit. So the money that you make, use a portion of that to pay the landlord and also cover the monthly bills as well. And then the rest you can keep as pure profit for yourself. And for us, as of now, what we mainly focus on when it comes to renting properties from landlords is to re-let them out as an Airbnb. And the reason why we choose Airbnb specifically is because that is an excellent way for us to be able to maximize profits from these specific properties. As a matter of fact, let me show you an example right now. So this right here is an example of one of our properties that we're actually renting from the landlord, and then we're re-letting it out as an Airbnb, as you can see from the flyboy photos in front of you. So what I can actually show you is the amount that we actually made in the last 30 days from this property. And we actually haven't had it for that long either. So if we go back to our booking system, this page right here actually represents that specific property. Now we want to pay attention to this number right here, which says revenue. Ignore profit because that's not correct. I don't know why it's saying that much in profit. This is how much money that actually was generated in the last 30 days from this place. Now we need to figure out how much of that is actually profit when we minus all of the expenses with this property right here. So the monthly rent we're paying on that place is £1,650 each and every month. The monthly bills, it works out to roughly around £300 per month. That's, gas, electric, council tax, Wi-Fi, etc., etc. Now we've also got the fee that Airbnb and Booking.com also charges us for those bookings as well. Now, because we have some bookings that come to us direct and not through Airbnb and Booking.com, we don't always get charged this amount. So for that amount, we put £365. Now you also have the cleaning costs as well. But for us with this specific property, we're actually charging the cleaning costs back to the guests. So they're gonna have to pay extra to also have the properties cleaned. We're not gonna pay that from our pocket. So for that, we're gonna put it as zero. Now, once we add all of the monthly expenses up, it works out to being £2,315 in monthly expenses. Now remember, the amount that we'd made before was just a little over £3,014. So if we're taking that and we're minusing it by the monthly expenses that we calculated, we're left with £699 in pure profit we're making from this specific property right here, which is not bad to be fair. And honestly, the total amount that we actually invested into this property was around £7,000. And that was for paying the upfront rent and also the deposit as well, and also furnishing the property and actually setting it up to a high standard, as you could see from the photos themselves. Now, mind you, we have this property right here on a 3-year contract, which works out to 36 months. It's only going to take us 10 months or so to make our money back. And the rest of the time after that is complete pure profit. And as it stands right now, between me and my business partner, we've got a total of 33 properties that we're currently managing at this current moment in time. And trust me, quite a few of them make a lot more profits than this specific property right here. We've got properties that are making 1,000, 2,000. We've even got certain properties that are making £3,000 per month in pure profit. So this right here is pretty much the highest level that you can get to when it comes to cash flowing from properties that you don't own. Now look, with this specific model right here, it's literally being used by the giants as we speak. For example, Netflix, they don't own any movies that, they stream any TV shows. They are just simply controlling it and distributing it. Same thing with Uber, for example. Uber don't own any taxis or any cars, but they are a multi-billion pound or billion-dollar company right there. Same thing with Airbnb, of course. Airbnb don't own any properties or any of the rooms they list in, but they control literally millions of them, and they are making some serious bank, and they're worth hundreds of billions. At this level right here, we're basically playing the same game as these guys right here. Of course, on a much smaller level, of course, but nonetheless, we're playing the same game as them, and we can work towards actually, building the operation, scaling it further and further, and actually taking this business to a serious level and making some serious cash flow in the process as well. And honestly, I'll repeat it again, this level right here genuinely changed my life and allowed me to level up in ways that I wouldn't have thought was imaginable. And part of what I do as well is teach our students how to kickstart a rent-to-rent Airbnb business and actually get it to a very nice level for themselves as well. If that's something that you're interested in, you want to learn more about, I've left a link in the description box for you to fill out an application, to inquire with us, to book in a call. Now, once you actually have your monthly cash flow at a certain level, it could be from this, it can be from other things that you're doing. This gives you that ability to graduate to the next level, which we call the investor class. At this point, you're pretty much starting to buy your own properties now, which, to be fair, a lot of people dream about getting to this point right here. But I'm gonna keep it 110% real with you. At this level, unless you're buying properties and doing specialized strategies with them, as in running them as an Airbnb, as a HMO where you're renting them out room by room, or any other strategy that allows you to maximize cash flow, the cash flow from standard, rental properties is pretty small. The properties that these guys are purchasing is pretty much a savings account that slowly grows over time. That's the simplest way of looking at it. And because this part right here is a slow game, it's definitely not a fast game. Investing in properties is an extremely slow game. A lot of people get stuck at that specific level. Let's run through a quick example right now. Let's say you're buying a property in the UK and this property costs £250,000. Let's say you want to take out a mortgage on that property. So that means you have to put up a 25% deposit, which works out to £62,500. Now, of course, you've got stamp duty, you've got legal fees, all these different things. Let's just bump that up to £70,000 in total that you're putting forward for this property. And of course, the rest of the 75%, that's covered by the bank that are gonna loan you, for taking out a mortgage on that specific property. Now, let's say the monthly rent you're receiving from this specific place is £1,300 per month. That's cool, that's a decent amount of money, but now let's actually minus all of the monthly expenses that's involved when you actually receive that rent for yourself. So you've got the mortgage costs. For this example, we're gonna put it at £780. You've also got insurance and maintenance costs as well. For that, won't be too shabby, we'll put it at £100. You've also got the letting agent fees. So you're obviously gonna be using an estate agent to manage your property, to let it out to different tenants. Let's say they're charging 10%, and 10% of £1,300 is £130 that you're gonna be paying per month. So when you're adding all of the monthly expenses that's involved with this specific property, that equals to £1,010 in expenses that's attached to this specific property each and every month. Now, when you minus the monthly rent that you're receiving, £1,300, by the monthly expenses, that leaves you with a whopping £290 per month. And if you calculate that on a yearly basis, it works out to £3,480, or just a little under £3,500. Now, the cash flow that you're making from this specific property isn't gonna be the biggest win. The biggest win is actually gonna come from the property actually going up in value over time. So we mentioned at the start, the property value is worth £250,000. Now, on average in the UK, property prices go up by around 4% per year. So if this property goes up by 4% in the next 12 months, that adds an extra £10,000 in value for that specific property that you would have made. So if you think about it, in 1 year, your property increases by £10,000 in value, but you're also making just a little under £3,500. So realistically, altogether, at the end of the year, you've got a wealth accumulation of around £13,500. So now at this level, you've sinked your teeth into the property purchase element, and you got your hands a little bit dirty. Now we can move on to the more advanced stuff, which takes us to the next level, which is level 5. And this right here is what we call the flippers level. And this level, how it works is very simple. You're finding rundown, dirty, rundown properties, you're buying them and you're fixing them up, you're adding value to it. And then once you've done that, you've got two options at that point. You can either choose to sell it on and flip it for a profit, or you can choose to take out a mortgage on that property and pull a lot of the money that you invested back out from that deal And then you can repeat the same cycle over and over again by buying more properties that are run down, adding value to it, and then taking out a mortgage and pulling your money back out. Don't worry, I'm gonna give you a clear example in a sec, breaking down how it works. So this right here was a property I actually purchased not that long ago for myself. This property was actually located in Wales, South Wales to be exact, and the purchase price for this property at that time was £80,000. Now, if we're including stamp duty, legal fees, etc., that brings it up to £90,000. Now, I wouldn't say this property right here was in a shambles state, but it was just in a super dated state. I mean, it looked like nobody had lived in there for literally 30 plus years. I mean, it was one of those properties. And we actually converted it into a 3-bedroom house. And all in total, we spent about £25,000 to get everything done for this property in repairs and also in the refurbishment costs as well. So now, all in total, we spent for this deal was £115,000. That includes the £80,000 we paid, the extra £10,000 for legal fees and stamp duty, and also the extra £25,000 that went towards the refurb. But because we've modernized the property, we added a lot of value to it, and we even added an extra bedroom, that pushed the property value to £145,000. So at that point, we had two options. We could either choose to put it on the market and actually sell it and make, 30 grand in profit, or we can choose to take out a mortgage on that property. And how that would work is we'd go to the bank would loan us 75% of the property value itself, which works out to being £108,750 that the bank are gonna loan you to actually take out a mortgage on that specific property. Remember, we invested £115,000. So if we get £115,000 and we minus it by the amount that the bank are going to be loaning us, which is that 75%, that equals to £6,250 that we've left into the deal. An extremely simple way of looking at it is we've basically bought that property and paid £6,250. So that's how the buy, refurbish, refinance model actually works. However, as you may already know right now, there is another level, new devil. Now on this level right here, this is when property stops becoming a deal by deal basis type of vibe. And it more starts becoming you actually building a real empire, a real business empire with property itself. And this brings us on to level 6, which we call the portfolio builders. Now at this level, instead of you buying one house here, one apartment there, you're buying multiple units under one roof. I met this landlord one time that had a block of 20 flats. So let's actually break down the numbers on that specific deal right there to actually give you an idea of what that landlord's actually making. Cool, so that landlord has 20 flats in that building. We've established that already. Now each flat he lets out for £1,200 per month. They're 1-bedroom flats. So that means the total rent added up together with all 20 of those properties, that equals to £24,000 per month. Now, of course, he's also got his monthly expenses that he's got to cover as well. So let's go through that one by one. So let's say he's got a mortgage on that specific building right there. And let's say that amount works out to £12,500 he's paying each month. And of course, he's got to cover service charges, insurance costs for that specific building right there too. Let's say for that amount, it works out to £3,300 per month. He's also got costs involved with repairs, void periods meaning when the properties are empty is obviously going to cost them money as well. Let's say we're dedicating and factoring in 10% of the rent towards that, which works out to £2,400 per month. And of course, he's got costs for staff, people that are helping him out with that, etc. We're going to put that at £2,000 per month. So when we add that all up together, in total, it works out to £20,200 in monthly expenses he has from that one building. So now if we get the amount that he collected in rent, which was £24,000 for all of those properties, and we minus it by the monthly expenses involved with this specific building right here, that leaves him with a total of £3,800 in pure profit he's making from that building, which per year works out to just a little over £45,000 per year. Now, mind you, that's just him renting those properties out to long-term tenants. Now, the real power doesn't really come from that £3,800 per month or £45,000 per year. The real power actually comes from the increase in value of that specific building that's taking place each and every year. So that building itself is probably worth about £4 million. Remember, we're talking about 20 flats right now. So remember, on average in the UK, property prices increase by, let's say 4% or so per year. So 4% of 4 million works out to being £160,000. He's actually building up extra each and every year from that property by simply owning it. But the thing is, we haven't even reached the final boss yet. There is still another level to climb, and that's what I'm going to be taking you through right here, right now. And this final level is no joke. Like, this is where the serious shot callers are playing at. And this right here is level 7. This is the final boss level right here. The reason why I'm saying that is because you stop buying properties, you stop managing properties. Now you're literally creating properties and whole buildings from nothing. Now, there was this one developer that I knew of, and he took an empty car park in London and actually turned that to a block of 200 luxury flats. So right now, let me actually run you through the numbers of what a deal like that actually looks like. Let's say to acquire that land, it cost him 15 million pounds. And let's say to actually build those 200 luxury flats, it cost him an extra 60 million pounds. And obviously that's gonna be for legal costs, for the builder's costs, for contractors, surveyors, etc., etc. So now altogether in that project, he spent about 75 million pounds or so. Now for each of those flats that's in that specific building, mind you, we're talking about prime London location, it's gonna be worth about 550,000 pounds. Remember, there's 200 flats in that building right there. So if you're taking 550,000 pounds and you're timesing that by 200, that equals to 110 million pounds that he is making if he chooses to sell those properties on. So if you take that 110 million and you minus it by 75 million, which was the amount that was spent on that deal, that leaves him with 35 million pounds that he's making in pure profit, like just from one project. Forget about it. It's just, it's stupid. That's what it is. It's stupid. At this level, you're literally in the top 0.001%. And this is why we call this the final boss level, because it's literally the final boss level. So that right there, my good people, is the full ladder of making money in property. And I'm gonna be honest with you, most people don't even make it past the first 2 levels. And in my opinion, level 3, the rent to rent, rental arbitrage strategy, is the more powerful strategy for someone that's looking to, get involved in property, control property, and maximize cash flow, using strategies like Airbnb, amongst other strategies as well, to be able to, again, max cash flow. This is what we help people do day in and day out. And this is something that I'm doing right now as we speak. And we're making some serious money from actually doing this as well. So if you're someone that's interested in learning more about that business model, kickstarting that business model, and you want our help and support in doing so, I've left a link in the description box for you to arrange a call with us and fill out a short form. And look, if this breakdown right here has helped you in the slightest, I would super appreciate it if you left a like, if you subscribed, because I've got some more fire coming your way very, very soon. So from that, I'm gonna let you go. Catch up with you soon.